All right, let's go to New York now, where rapper Kid Cudi is expected to take the stand in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial. Kid Cudi is set to testify tomorrow about his brief relationship with Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, back in 2011. Prosecutors say Combs was so upset about that relationship, he had Cudi's convertible blown up by a firebomb.
Things might take a major twist in the Diddy case tomorrow. Kid Cudi is expected to testify, but there's chatter that something might happen that could stop him from taking the stand. We'll have to wait and see before we get into what might come next. Let's catch up on what's already happened, because some big developments have taken center stage. The prosecution has been laying out evidence that was taken during the raid on Diddy's Star Island mansion in Miami. And honestly, some of it is eyebrow-raising.
It was a Homeland Security Special Agent, Gerard Gannon, who testified today and was able to show the jurors pictures and actual evidence that they found from the home of Sean Combs in Miami. So they showed pictures of red heels. Apparently he had 18 pairs of platform shoes. They showed some of the images in his master bedroom closet of sex toys. Then they showed that there were Balenciaga boots that he had with 3 cell phones stuffed in one of those boots, as well as several drugs. They showed pictures of pills, blue, pink, white, yellow, orange, black. And then they told the jurors that they were able to test the substances, and they tested positive for MDMA, ketamine, cocaine, methamphetamine. So again, we heard more about the drugs, but then we were able to actually see the evidence that the jurors were able to take in.
Now the question is, how does all of this tie into racketeering? Because racketeering isn't just about having illegal stuff. It's about running an ongoing criminal enterprise. Think mafia-style operations organized, structured, and sustained illegal activity. That's the kind of setup racketeering laws were made for. So while baby oil and Astroglide might raise eyebrows, they don't exactly scream organized crime. And yes, AR-15s might lead to gun charges, especially if they're unregistered or modified on their own. But they're not proof of racketeering. Same goes for the drugs. Are they illegal? Sure, but personal use, even heavy personal use, isn't the same as operating a drug ring. To build a racketeering case, the prosecution needs to prove that there was an organized structure behind all of this, a coordinated system where crimes were part of a bigger plan. So far, that's not entirely clear, but things got a bit more serious and potentially more impactful when forensic psychologist Dawn Hughes took the stand. She spoke about something that's often misunderstood: Stockholm Syndrome. It's a psychological condition where victims, often of domestic abuse, develop a sense of loyalty or emotional dependence on their abuser. Even after facing violence, they might feel like they can't leave. Some blame themselves, some are too afraid, others feel emotionally trapped. This testimony is a big piece of the puzzle for prosecutors. One of the major questions people keep asking is, if the abuse was really happening, why didn't Cassie leave? And that's exactly what Dr. Hughes addressed. She explained that trauma bonding is real. Victims don't always leave even when things are awful. They might return to the abuser multiple times. That doesn't mean they're okay with the abuse. It just means they're stuck in a psychological cycle that's incredibly hard to break. Prosecutors are hoping this helps the jury understand that staying in a relationship doesn't equal consent. It's a critical distinction they're making. Just because someone stayed doesn't mean they were okay with what was happening. So, while tomorrow's testimony might shake things up if Kid Cudi does take the stand, today's developments, especially Hughes' testimony, could be just as important in shaping how the jury sees this case. Next up on the stand was George Kaplan, Diddy's former assistant who worked with him from 2013 to 2015. And his testimony? It dropped some serious bombshells. Kaplan painted a picture of what it was like behind the scenes, working for one of the most powerful figures in the music industry. He told the jury that part of his job included carrying drugs for Diddy often, tucked inside a Gucci bag. Sometimes he even bought the drugs himself. But that's not all. He also set up hotel rooms for what he described as freak-offs, basically. Extravagant, sexually charged parties, and then cleaned up the aftermath. That, according to him, was all in a day's work. Now, prosecutors are leaning on Kaplan's testimony to support their racketeering charge. They're trying to argue that this wasn't just a chaotic celebrity lifestyle, it was an organized, ongoing operation involving drugs, sex workers, and coercive behavior. But here's where it gets complicated. Yes, Kaplan was doing a lot of shady errands. Yes, the environment sounds toxic and extreme. But is that the same as running a criminal enterprise under RICO laws? That's a tougher sell. Remember, racketeering isn't just about wild behavior or even illegal acts. It's about sustained, organized criminal activity like something you'd see in a mob movie. What Kaplan described mostly sounds like he was managing Diddy's personal vices. He testified that he worked 80-hour weeks, felt mentally drained, and was regularly threatened, not with violence, but with the constant fear of being fired. He said Diddy pressured him relentlessly. But threats to someone's job don't quite rise to the level of criminal coercion that racketeering laws are meant to address. Even if Kaplan arranged hotels or travel for women involved in these freak-offs, there wasn't clear evidence of illegal trafficking or anything resembling a syndicate. Honestly, it felt more like a high-octane celebrity lifestyle gone off the rails than a calculated criminal operation. The prosecution is working hard to paint a picture that all of this drugs, parties, assistants doing shady errands wasn't just chaos behind the scenes of a celebrity lifestyle, but something bigger. They're suggesting this was an organized network, possibly crossing state lines, potentially involving trafficking, drugs, coercion, all the ingredients needed for a RICO case. But let's be honest, George Kaplan's testimony, dramatic as it was, doesn't scream criminal enterprise. It sounds more like a celebrity machine run off the rails, too much power, no boundaries, and people like Kaplan stuck in the mess. His story reflects excess and dysfunction, not structured, organized crime. Then came the big pivot, the part that could tip this whole case. Kid Cudi, this could be a game changer. Prosecutors are hanging a lot on his potential testimony. Here's the theory. Diddy, allegedly jealous of Kid Cudi's relationship with Cassie, ordered someone to blow up Cudi's car. And yes, the car really did explode. If Kid Cudi can link Diddy directly to that attack, suddenly we're not talking about just parties and drug bags anymore. We're talking about violence, intimidation, and revenge. That's RICO territory. Intimidation and retaliatory violence could push this case over the line from over-the-top celebrity behavior into true criminal organization. But there's a big legal snag here, say. And the defense knows it. They flagged it early in the day, clearly gearing up for whatever Cudi might say next. For his testimony to count, he needs to be what's called a percipient witness, meaning he has direct knowledge. He saw something. He heard something himself. He was part of the moment. If all Kid Cudi has is, "Someone told me Diddy did it," it's over. That's hearsay. The defense will object, and they'd likely win that objection. The jury would never even hear it. Just like that, what could have been explosive becomes inadmissible. This is why there's so much suspense around what Kid Cudi might actually say. No one, prosecution, defense, press, or public, knows for sure. He could have the missing link, or he could just have rumors and whispers. If it's the latter, the testimony could get cut off before it even begins. And the prosecution knows they're walking a tightrope. They're hoping Cudi brings the fireworks, the direct accusation that ties Diddy to something undeniably criminal. But they also know that if he doesn't have hard proof or a first-hand account, they're looking at a major letdown. So the courtroom is holding its breath. Kaplan's testimony was salacious. Yes, talks of freak-offs, drugs in designer bags, and threats to his job. But in the end, it painted Diddy as controlling and excessive, not necessarily criminal. The prosecution needs more than spectacle. They need violence, coordination, threats, and cover-ups, things that show a criminal enterprise, not just a celebrity train wreck. Kid Cudi could be the missing piece or not. And that's where we are. The prosecution is rolling the dice on one of the music industry's most recognizable names, hoping he has something that goes beyond gossip. Because without it, their case might just fizzle out as another tale of fame gone messy. Sure, but not necessarily illegal. Next up on the stand was a surprising figure, Sheree Hayes, better known in certain circles as the Punisher. He's an exotic dancer, and his testimony definitely grabbed attention, though maybe not in the way the prosecution hoped. Hayes told the court he was hired multiple times over 3 years to perform private dances for Cassie, always in New York hotels like the Trump International and Essex House. And every time, Diddy was there watching. What started as simple dances gradually turned into full-on sexual encounters with Diddy observing the whole thing. Hayes said this happened 5 to 6 times a year consistently and always in NYC. No travel, no out-of-state logistics. Just locals staying local. He described the first time clearly, it was for Cassie's birthday. Diddy invited him in and the dance escalated from there. After that, they kept calling him back. But here's the twist. Despite the salacious details, Hayes didn't actually describe anything illegal. From his point of view, there was no force, no threats, no trafficking. In fact, he admitted Cassie sometimes seemed unsure or hesitant, but not coerced. And Diddy? According to Hayes, he never pressured her. When asked why he thought he was even brought in to testify, Hayes looked just as puzzled as the rest of the room. He said prosecutors never explained it. They just heard his story and called him in. His exact words, "Honestly, I thought my testimony helped the defense." That line hung in the air. The courtroom was left stunned and a bit confused. Instead of adding weight to the prosecution's narrative, Hayes may have done the opposite. So now the question is, was this another misstep for the prosecution? Or just a witness that didn't land the way they expected? Either way, it didn't do them any favors. Here's the deal. Since everything Hayes described happened right there in New York, it means no crossing of state lines. That might sound like a small detail, but it's huge when it comes to federal charges, especially ones like the Mann Act. That law specifically targets transporting people across state borders for illegal purposes, like sex trafficking. So, if no one left New York, the Mann Act just doesn't apply. Hayes himself is a New Yorker. Cassie was in New York. The whole situation went down in New York hotels. So, no interstate activity, no federal hook for certain charges. What this means is pretty straightforward. The prosecution brought in a witness who confirmed some kind of relationship triangle involving Diddy, Cassie, and Hayes, but didn't back up any claims of abuse, trafficking, or criminal coercion. He described everything as consensual, no pressure, no force, no racketeering, just a bizarre but consensual pattern of encounters. Naturally, this left the courtroom and legal experts scratching their heads. Why call Hayes? Big red flag for prosecutors. So, with that curveball behind them, the prosecution is pinning their hopes on their next big moment: Kid Cudi's testimony. Cudi's expected to take the stand tomorrow, and this time everyone's watching. Why? Because the prosecution hopes Kid Cudi will finally connect the dots, bringing in evidence of violence and intimidation, things that could push the case from messy personal drama into outright criminal behavior. Specifically, they want him to talk about his car, the one that was set on fire. Not just vandalized, but torched and exploded. The rumor going around is that Diddy was jealous of Cudi's connection with Cassie, and that jealousy might have sparked retaliation. If Cudi can say Diddy ordered the attack or was directly involved, that could be the smoking gun prosecutors' need for serious charges like racketeering, showing organized crime, violence, and intimidation. But there's a catch. Hearsay rules. The defense has already signaled they'll object to any secondhand info Cudi offers. If Cudi says, "Someone told me Diddy did it," that's hearsay, and the judge will likely block it from the jury. For Cudi's testimony to count, he has to be a percipient witness, meaning he needs direct knowledge. Either he saw it happen, heard it straight from Diddy, or someone directly involved confessed to him. Without that, the defense will slam the brakes immediately and the jury won't hear a thing. So, now, it's all about what Cudi actually knows firsthand. If he has solid proof linking Diddy to a violent crime, it could turn this whole trial on its head. If it's just rumors, the prosecution faces yet another dead end in a case that's had more flash than facts. Nobody really knows what Cudi will say yet, not even the defense. But one thing's certain, the courtroom is gearing up for what could be the most crucial testimony yet.